Hey Zwifters, and welcome to the Zwiftcast. I've been taking a short break from podcasting, but now I'm back. And I've got two chums to keep me company. They are the voice of Zwift, Nathan Guerra. Yo, dude.
Hey, how's it going, Simon?
And Mr. Oz, the llama himself, Shane Miller. G'day, mate.
G'day, Simon. How's things?
Good with me, thank you very much. Now, Nathan, I hear you've been winning races.
It's been going okay. Yeah, we've won a few races with the season start.
Good to hear, good to hear. And I gather you have been transferring your commentary skills from online to real life and helping Zwift out on the Tour of California with the Canyon Girls?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, hanging out with Canyon Shram out at the Tour of California. We did the Zwift Academy ride with them. It was a really great time out there.
Excellent. And Shane, you've been hosting Zwift people as well, I think causing mayhem and surprise, drinking beer in Australia.
Yeah, that's right. We had the privilege of the team coming over from Zwift for a couple of event nights, I guess you'd call them, in both Sydney and Melbourne, which were hugely attended. We have over 100 in Sydney. We had close to 200 in Melbourne. People coming along for the night, trying Zwift for the first time, jumping on a smart trainer and getting that beaming glow that you get when you first try a smart trainer and you get that resistance kick in. And yes, the computer game does make you work harder. Along with that, lots and lots of beers, lots of good times.
It sounds good. Do you think those events are incredibly effective for helping to sell Zwift? Because, you know, we kind of live in an online world. If anybody I know gets curious, I say, well, just go look at the website. But do you think those real-life things work better?
They can't be beaten, for sure. Look, you need hands-on, or in this case, legs-on, of a smart trainer to really know what it feels like. It's that the first feeling you get when you first go up that hill or the gradient goes down and you've got to put it in the 5311 and spin out. A lot of people haven't tried a trainer or haven't tried indoor training where you need to really change down the gears and ride like you do outside. So getting all those people into the events, having a good time, mixing it with beers, friends, and racing against each other, it was really great, and we've had a lot of sign-ups for that, so that's been really good.
Maybe some of us who on Zwift and found it early on tend to be online, maybe a little too much sometimes, but The reality of having a real life event and somebody there, for some reason those tend to be a spark or a seed that then network out very quickly and kind of start a wildfire, a little bit. So I think that those are priceless, and they create hype, and also creating some, real life pictures and things that are shared from a gathering, or a shared experience in real life. You just can't beat that.
Okay, let's get on with the show. Now, in the last couple of weeks, I've been lucky enough to spend some time with Jon Mayfield, the creator of Zwift and the co-founder of the company. We had a good long interview, and we talked mainly about the group ride module. And within that conversation, Jon dropped in some new information which I found quite surprising and I think is fairly significant. We were talking about the next phase in the release of the group ride module, which is due out anytime now. This is what he said.
So that phase will potentially include results. There may be some certain events may have some results shown, so that we may have to experiment with segregating them based on what kind of device type they have, Z-Power versus Power Meter versus Smart Trainer.
I mean, you mentioned it almost in passing there, but a potential for differentiating results between the type of trainer you're on, and you yourself mentioned Z-Power and Smart Trainers. That, I feels like quite a big decision, because it's possibly differentiating users into two different classes. Does it feel as big a decision to you?
There's a reason that would be in phase 3. I'm kind of putting it off, and I guess part of it depends on how we present the information. I think people are used to seeing, they kind of understand like, the guy in first place is 5 seconds faster than everybody else, and he doesn't have the power meter. Maybe it's a miscalibration.
Right.
So they're used to seeing that, and I don't think that would be a big deal if we present it in a similar type of manner.
Now, I think people on Smart Trainers will universally welcome this, But was there nervousness around taking a decision like that? And I know it's only going to be for select events, but even so, it is quite a big step.
Well, I think it's necessary. I don't think there's an option. It is a big step, but I think the first segregation will just simply be power meter users or smart trainer and power meter users,
right,
versus the Z Power. So that feels kind of safe to me.
Okay, I think that's quite a big development, and I think the community are going to certainly have things to say about that.
Well, like I said, we listen. We do try to listen, and once we've got some vocal users out there. So we'll see.
We will see
how it goes.
It will be very interesting to see the reaction to that.
So, guys, that, to my mind, is big news, differentiating between two types of user. Nathan, what do you make of that?
I think Jon knows his community. I think that he knows where it's at. Generally in the community right now, those who've been around for a little bit longer, I mean, it's pretty well recognized, and people have done enough research, I think, and just kind of a level of acceptance that, look, Z-Power can be very accurate, can be close. It's not the same as a smart trainer or a strain gauge power meter, and so just having separate leaderboards for results in order to make results justified, on that specific topic makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a ton of sense, and I think it's a great development. I'm totally behind it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. But one thing we do know, Shane, is that if people get the opportunity to be offended online and express it on social media, they sometimes take it. And, does this run the risk of that whole "you're creating two classes of riders" thing that people are just going to really kick off about?
Oh, it's an interesting one. Cyclists are a very passionate bunch. We're known to operate at maximum heart rate, and a lot of our opinions are typed whilst still at maximum heart rate. So there's a lot of passion there. But I believe it's a good thing for the results. Look, I'll take it a step further. I say let's do it all the time. Let's make all the leaderboards, because I tell you what, personally, from me, if I'm going hard up the comm and I've put out X amount of watts over this time, and I know my system is completely calibrated, someone comes and takes it 800, 900 watts for 2 minutes, I'm offended. I don't like that. I say let's take this further. Let's split it down the middle all the time.
I agree with you, Shane, but I think that's going to happen quite soon, actually. I think this is just although it feels like a bit of a tentative toe in the water, it's actually quite a big decision, and I think it'll be just one of those things that's rolled out to more and more things quite quickly. Anyway, I went on to talk to Jon about how perfect he thinks the draft is currently and whether he thinks it could get better.
When we're talking about group riding, do you think that Zwift can ever get to the point where it could perfectly replicate something like a pace line, where tiny changes in an individual's behaviour can influence the way that group works? Or do you think the issues around lag and latency are going to prove insurmountable on a technical level, even though the ambition may be there to get it as absolutely lifelike as possible?
I think there's definitely a huge amount of room for improvements with how the ride dynamics are applied. But you've got to realize we get maybe one power number a second from a device.
Right.
And then we have to guess what that means you want to do. Do you want to pull off and go to the back of the line? Are you trying to hold this guy's wheel? Are you not trying to hold the guy's wheel? There's an impressive amount of guessing we have to do as to what it is you actually want to do. And in real life, you can feather the brakes, you can steer a little bit. It's much more responsive. So, if we can get some better algorithms and maybe even some sort of slight steering sensor, maybe we use the phone, for example, mounted on handlebars, maybe we can use accelerometers there. I think there's a lot of room for improvement.
Do you?
A little bit of, you got to get the nuances in there, right? I mean, when you're generally riding outside, you're making micro adjustments all the time.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a mix of better guessing algorithms on our side and maybe even another data stream like an accelerometer on a phone or something to try to figure out what you're doing. Adding steering to via the phone, I think, would be maybe a large leap. It would be very clear if you wanted to get out of somebody's draft, for example.
Right.
You would make a slight motion to pull off to one side.
Right.
That would be a clear signal to us.
And that would go quite a long way of solving what some people call the sticky draft, where you get stuck behind a rider.
Exactly. Does a 40-watt power gain mean you want to get out of the draft right then, or does it not? It's tricky to say.
Well, how interesting. Jon thinks we're still early days as far as the draft's concerned, I think, and that it could stand loads and loads of improvement, which is pretty exciting. How do you think the draft is sitting at the moment, Shane?
Look, it's a lot better than what it was. Early beta days, you'd probably remember, a lot of us will remember the time that if you dropped a wheel out of a bunch, there was no getting back. It was day over, week over, month over. You could never claw back. So they've done a lot of work on that. However, it's still not perfect. Out on the road, if you want to replicate real world, if you were to chase a bunch and get back on, you can latch back onto that bunch and you can have a bit of a rest. You can have a bit of a freewheel if it's flat. On the Zwift rides, though, yes, your speed comes up, but there's no real resting. It's still an element of ITT that I find for the races that I do. So there's a lot of room to improve there, for sure. But I also understand the mathematics behind it, and it is a really, really complex problem. The enormity of what they've done, they've built a new reality, which is Watopia or the Zwift world. They've had to build a bike, they've had to build distance, they've had to design everything and draw the trees and draw the road. It's a really hard problem to solve. But look, I think they're getting close. But yeah, definitely a lot of room to improve.
Nathan, do you see that more gamey side of it as able to be developed?
This idea of having more ways to interact with it through controlling methods is starting to come up. And, early on, there was that blog that was done on Jon Mayfield and who made Zwift, and some of his early iterations of Zwift, of him just playing with this game that he made, were him actually moving an avatar chasing coins down in order to get coins, kind of almost like Sonic the Hedgehog or something. And in my dreamland of all the ways Zwift could go, I envision a time where we have strapped controllers onto our hoods, and just like we're shifting our bike on left and right in order to go to a bigger or smaller chainring, we're now also shifting our avatars around on the road back and forth just with a little click of the fingers, and so I think that there's a lot that we can do, down the road, and I think that Zwift is keen on that, and I'm super excited to see the changes that are coming in order to more gamify the experience, actually, to make it more interactive and give us more abilities to, just like in real life, I got to shift to go harder, I got to shift down to go uphill, etc. And we have that now with smart trainers, but there's also the reality of I got to move around in real life too in a pack, and I think they're going to start adding those kinds of things a little more.
It would make racing even more exciting, I think, Shane, if you could do stuff like attacking the gutter and...
Oh, look, I was just thinking as Nathan was speaking then, my mind was sort of just another can of worms opened up about what you could do with that. You imagine if you wanted to attack off the front, rather than just accelerate off the front, imagine diving to that right-hand or left-hand gutter and then putting in a big attack. People will have to respond, but also will have to steer and respond as well. You could swing off on a pace line, so you do a hard turn and swing off, forcing the guy behind you to do a turn, or guy or girl behind you to do a turn. Again, a lot of mathematics have to go in behind that, but that would just be the next sort of wow factor of what they could put into this virtual world.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me that Jon still sounds incredibly ambitious in that there's an acknowledgement. To some extent, we're still in the foothills and, there's a long way to go to the summit. It's really interesting to hear that. Next, I asked him about how important group riding was to Zwift.
I would say it's about a quarter of the users probably really concentrate on these group rides, and it's a big appeal to them. More than 25%, I think, are going to end up on a group ride. And the number may grow as they see how accessible it is. You don't have to necessarily meet up. When we were originally planning out what Zwift would be, we always sort of knew we had three pieces to the puzzle, three main pieces. One was just get a world where you can have people sign in and ride and see other users. And they can just do whatever they want. It's just a virtual road. So that was kind of part one. We did that. And then we knew part two would be workouts. Right? You got to have structured training. People are on a trainer for a reason, it's to get stronger. And then the third part of the plan was always group rides. So it's a pretty significant part of the plan all along.
Well, it clearly is important because they put a lot of resource into the group riding module, which I think everybody thinks is great, even though it's still being tested. But the interesting thing for me in that little clip was John saying that 25% of the user base are group riding. I might have thought it was higher than that, Nathan. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a shift, a slow shift to the reality of an online community, the reality of a massive multiplayer online video game. You have a main market population that I believe was being targeted that originally is, we're hanging out on Trainer Road, we're hanging out on our basement wall, we're hanging out, whatever it is we were doing to do prior to this. There were people who already had the setups, and then there are people who are getting introduced and are now purchasing setups or whatever they need to do to get the setups going. And now all of a sudden there's this whole new world of, wait a second, what's a massive multiplayer online? And I can interact with people, I can talk to people, I can ride with them and so I think 25% is actually a pretty good number, a pretty big number. And with the amount of users that are on Zwift, that's a lot of people riding together, actually. I see so many questions that come through the Facebook groups about, well, what time is that at? And I didn't even know that this exists. And I think there's just a lot of users out there who have used it as a training software mainly. And the idea of an online community and interactive game is just starting to take more of a foothold and become more of the social aspect of Zwift.
That Aussie Hump Day ride, Shane, that is enormous, isn't it? And by the way, what the hell is Hump Day?
Wednesday, it's the middle of the week, so you sort of go up to Wednesday and then everything comes down Hump Day. So HDR, if you see that one. And we have the Performance Ride Tuesday night run by Andrew Jacobs, which has always had good numbers. Hump Day Ride, which is propped up, and that has got extremely high numbers. And we've also had a Saturday morning ride pop up yesterday, actually, the Pretzel Ride, where it uses the pretzel course. Look, they're just becoming more and more popular. As Nathan said, people are just discovering these rides. So I'll first give a plug there to Zwiftcalendar.com. Great spot to find. And that solves the problem of what time zone is this in, because it will display the rides based on your local time. Really, really handy given we're a global community. Those rides have just become really, really popular. And I see 25%, that'll just keep going up and up and up as people discover these rides happening in times that are friendly to them. And also with the event module, making them a lot easier with kilometres to go or laps to go, and as the community grows. So, look, 25, that's a big number at the moment. It will go higher.
Yeah, I think it will. I have to say, I rarely get on Zwift solo these days. If I'm on Zwift, it's either to do a group ride or to do a race. I think that's because I'm kind of fundamentally lazy, really, and I need something to motivate me, and I find that workouts don't really do it for me.
Holding wheels is a big motivator. I've finished many workouts and a group will come by and I'll jump on and keep going, and I've got to hold that wheel. Next thing I know, I've done another 90 minutes indoors. So the quality, it just happens. It's great.
Yeah.
And I think that the addition of the event module in-game, where on the load screen you come in, because the way it works right now, when there is an event going with the event module, there's a little black box then when you're going to select how you're going to ride, whether it's a flat course or whatever course you're going to ride. Well, now they have that, and having it in game rather than going, and finding it elsewhere is going to, is really going to make it more obvious, I think, that these things are happening. And you can just join up to one that's happening at this time. And so being something that is as user-friendly as possible for when you can ride, while the event module, I think, is also solving that problem too.
Yeah, and the mobile app, actually, which I'm pretty sure will be out by the time this podcast is published. And I know it's coming out literally any day now. that's going to make things easier because there's going to be things like notifications for group rides and the ability to integrate your calendar with the group ride calendar and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I see it only growing actually. If you're really sharp-eyed and possibly Australian, actually, because this guy is Australian, you might have noticed a guy who rides on Zwift called Alex Welsh. And the sharp-eyed thing is, if you look at his name, when you see him on the island, in brackets, he's got hand cyclist. And I'm not terribly certain that absolutely everybody understands the significance of that. So I caught up with Alex to find out a bit more.
Yes, I am a hand cyclist, and thank you very much, Simon, for having me on the show.
And just for those who don't know, just explain what a hand cycle is.
So yeah, a hand bike for me, I ride a recumbent hand cycle. So there's one wheel at the front and two wheels at the back. For me, I use a 650 wheel at the front and two 20-inch wheels at the back. And then we crank with both arms together. And then the gears so the drive hub is on the front wheel. And so yeah, just got gears sort of like a normal road bike, sort of, so to speak. And yeah, you just lay down and crank as hard as you can. And so yeah, we ride hills, ride flats, ride mountains, everything sort of thing. So, are there any limitations, Alex, on what you can ride on a handbag? I mean, I've seen guys going up alpine climbs on handbags. It seems to me they can go anywhere where a two-wheel bike will go. Yeah, there's pretty much no limit. The only thing you're limited by is, I guess, your strength and endurance. And then also it's important to select the right gears. Yeah. And for me in training, I use an 1142 cassette and then just like a compact chain set, so like a 3450. And that seems to get me by most places. I've ridden up a few of the mountains down Australia and that sort of thing. So yeah, I've ridden up like Falls Creek and a couple of others. So yeah, certainly there's no place we can't really go. Our muscle groups are a bit smaller than your legs, but yeah, through training and all that sort of stuff and being down so low as well, you get a little bit of an aerodynamic advantage, and we just climb slower pretty much. And just explain briefly the circumstances by which you came to be a hand cyclist. So yeah, in January 2009, I was a motocross racer and was out practicing and just had a crash, which resulted in a broken back and paralyzed from the chest down pretty much straight away. I just remember just was knocked out for a while, woke up and just pretty much couldn't feel anything basically from the chest down, couldn't sit up, couldn't feel my legs, all that sort of stuff. And basically from then on sort of spent 6 weeks in hospital getting my back bolted back together, and then 3 months in rehab learning everything all over again. And at the time I was 17 years old. I'm 24 now. So yeah, it was definitely a tough process and a big life-changing experience, but definitely through sport and the opportunities that I got to be involved in different things, it sort of kept me going and which has led to where I am now. And I mean, yeah, definitely, like as you say, I guess life rolls on and I'm able to still do a lot of amazing things, which I'm fortunate about. Mm-hmm. Presumably you're familiar with the guy who had a similar accident, the guy who made the road bike party videos. Martin Ashton, yeah. I mean, I've spoken to him and he sounds very similar to you, and like he's got on with it really. And he's got back on a bike and he actually rides something not dissimilar to what you ride. Sport has just been a complete redemption for him. Is that the case for you too? Yeah, definitely. It's about just focusing on, I guess, the things that you can do as opposed to the things that you can't. And I think that's just an important mindset to have, I guess, with anything, any circumstance you're in. It's just deal with what you can, the best you can, and just try and keep moving forward. I mean, you don't have to have a disability to sort of face tough times, that's for sure. So it's just a matter about picking your battles and fighting them as they come, sort of thing.
So just like a road cyclist, when it starts to cool down and get wet and cold and horrible, you head for Zwift. So how do you get your hand cycle on Zwift?
So for me, I use a Compi trainer. It's kind of a bit of old technology, but it's pretty reliable. It's not like any of the new trainers sort of thing, but I guess it does pretty much the same thing. So that just bolts to the front wheel of my bike, and then you just clamp it onto the tire. And pretty much go from there, just plug it into my Mac, and having Zwift available on there has made things a lot easier, because it's my Mac runs a lot better than my old Windows PC. And I remember riding around like that the first island, it was just like a little short loop.
Yeah, Jarvis Island, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
And what do you make of it?
I think it's incredible. Just works really well. Just works, Yeah. That's sort of definitely its advantage. You just plug it in and you go. Even with the workout modes and stuff are really simple too, which I think that's such a great advantage. And then being on the handbike, you just kind of you just chase after all the able-bodied guys and sort of see how close you can get to them.
What is the difference, Alex? What's per kilo you put now? I mean, you're obviously a pretty fit guy.
Yeah. So for a time trial, for nationals, for instance, I put out probably just over 3 watts per kilo, I think, for like half an hour. Yeah, pretty good numbers.
If you raced, that will put you in kind of C category racing in the Zwift races. Do you enter any of the Zwift races?
I haven't yet. No, I haven't been organised enough yet. Yeah,
you do pretty well in a C cat, I think.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
Whenever in real life you see a guy on a handbike, you give them like kind of instant respect. Because it's so obvious what slight disadvantage that they are facing. Now, clearly on Zwift, because you haven't got a handbike avatar, you don't get that. Is there any sense in which you sort of miss that?
Yeah, I've got, like, in my last name, I've got in brackets, in capital letters, handbike. So right. I think I still get like a few random kudos and thumbs up and that sort of thing. The same way you do kind of when you're out on the road. Yeah, I think it'd be wicked if there was like an avatar like in real life. But
I think it'd be great if you had your own avatar, and I'm going to be a bit mischievous and maybe start pestering Zwift HQ to get you on.
I remember that would be really cool. For a while, like the little green machines or whatever that were all on shots and stuff. And I thought, well, if they can make them, I'm sure they could. Should rig up a handbike or something. So
well, let's. I know they listen, so come on, guys. Let's see what you can do for Alex.
Yeah, and I think too maybe require a little less watts per kilo just because of our aero advantage, possibly being so low.
And I hope when people hear this now and they see handbike in brackets, they kind of know what it means, and you'll get the same amount of respect in Zwift as you get out on the open road.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate the support, and it'd be cool if we can grow this, and I definitely plan to keep supporting it, and definitely a big believer. I try and sell it to as many people as I can. That's for sure. Just because I know how well it works.
Well, here's to a really good indoor season for you in Australia, and thank you very much indeed for sharing your story with the Zwiftcast.
No worries. Thanks a lot, Simon. I'll see you guys later.
Cheers, dude. Now, on Zwift Island, it's going to be pretty easy to miss or not understand the significance of him writing hand cyclist in brackets. And he says, I think, entirely reasonably, why can't I have an avatar that shows to everybody really clearly and visibly that I'm a hand cyclist? I think I agree with him. Shane?
Yeah, for sure. I'm all for it. Absolutely. If we can have a trike on April Fool's Day, I think we had a trike for, I'm sure we can accommodate a hand cycle for hand cyclists to be within the game. That would be brilliant. If we could ride side by side, shoulder to shoulder, so to speak, with those people like we do in real life, when we're riding along the road, they'll absolutely get a few ride-ons, pats on the back, and be shown respect. as we do as cyclists and regularly road users. So let's make it happen. I'm all for it. The only thing I have, the only concern I have is how do we regulate the usage? Do we have it as a normal selectable bike, or if the bike has different properties, do we have races with that? I'm not quite sure how the usage regulation would go around. And as I've alluded to before as well, the priorities at Zwift, they're still building this world. They're still perfecting the world. So is this a bit of a reach for them to design a bike with all the different properties and then the administration around that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it feels a bit of a frill, but I think differently abled people and Paralympians say, do you know what? These things really matter to us. But Nathan, is there a risk of stigmatization?
Yeah, I think that the user customization, for each individual is really important to people. Obviously, just from that point of view, from the user's perspective, obviously with our jerseys, our bikes, if you walk into any other massive multiplayer online where people are represented by some sort of an avatar, it's really important right up front to people, and you have a whole scene, initial page that you walk into, and how are you going to customize your avatar, and people, like to be represented well in there how they like to be. And so I think having the option there for somebody who is a Paralympian or any kind of differentiation like that is actually really encouraging for all of us, to see somebody with one leg or a hand cycle or whatever it might be out there getting it done is really encouraging to all of us. And I think the community would love it and get right behind it. Who gets it when and how. I think Zwift will handle that well. And I my personal opinion would be, save those things for those specific individuals. I think Shane hit the nail on the head, though. At the same time, right now, with all the development that can happen, with the need, I think, to expand and grow user base and get more people riding Zwift and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how low that fruit is hanging right now on the tree, so...
I agree with that. But there's always a long list of stuff that needs to be done in Zwift, but it took them for God knows how long to get a female-specific jersey for comms and sprints, didn't it? Which was a big miss. I don't know why they let that go so long.
With the King of the Mountain, Queen of the Mountain thing, and that definitely needed to happen as soon as possible. So, and maybe that tells us a little bit about where resources are going, when and how under the gun and how hard they are actually working, though. I mean, just to play an advocate for them a little bit, I think that Zwift is working really hard on every single thing that is on their plate, and I think they got maybe 10 plates spinning at all times, and one plate might be falling over here, and they're like, oh, hey, what's happening on the Facebook page? Oh, my goodness, that's, wow, fire, and I'm going to go put on that fire over here, and now this fire's starting, and okay, do we have enough water? I don't know if we even have enough water. So, I think as a smaller company, I'm not sure that having 10 plates spinning and then we add like a huge buffet onto one plate of user customization and it's already got like 10 things on it. I mean, how many jerseys are they trying to develop right now for how many different clubs from all over the world and, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean...
Shane, you're the IT guy. It is actually about prioritization. As
users, it's easy for us to come up with ideas, and we love coming up with ideas, but the actual technical implementation can be extremely difficult.
Yeah. No, we do need to cut them some slack. It's just that the girls, ladies, however we describe female cyclists, in my club it's always been girls and none of the girls object, so I'm going to say girls. The girls were getting a bit uptight and impatient about the jersey thing, and at that point I could see why. But anyway, we've had a good discussion about that. Let's move on to racing, because the Zwiftcast wouldn't really be the Zwiftcast without some time spent discussing racing. And the KISS series was what I wanted to focus on for this episode, because it's gone global. You can now race in a KISS race all over the world in all kinds of time zones, and I noticed they have launched in Australia. So I caught up with one of the founders of the series, Glenn Knight, and asked him to tell us a bit more about his ambition. Hi Glenn, why don't we start by I think if you tell me what KISS stands for, that will also really simply explain the concept of the race series, so go ahead.
Well, KISS is keep it simple, stupid. The idea is to minimize the rule set, minimize the difficulty in actually getting on to the race, participating in the race, getting through the race, and then being presented at the end of it with your results.
And basically it means anything goes, doesn't it? I mean, as long as you don't start like 45 seconds ahead of everybody else, it is anything goes.
We kind of took the mindset, if we can't police it, then there's no point in having a rule for it. There's no point in us saying no power-ups, because there's nothing that we can do to stop it from happening. So it was about keeping the rules as minimum as possible, only doing those things that we can enforce.
But the thing that distinguishes the KISS race, as far as I can see, it is absolutely full gas, eyeballs out, right from the start. I mean, it's like 5 and 6 watts per kilogram off the line, isn't it?
It is. I don't know where that came from, to be honest. That kind of set the race up, really. Yeah. Once you got that group together. And I mean, and now it still happens in exactly the same way now, but we now have a good pack of 20 to 30 A riders that do exactly the same, and they can match each other watt for watt.
Wow.
Going through that first sort of half a mile, which is the critical part, really. And then you get the groups that form, and then the race kind of slows down a little bit and tails off.
I mean, it's certainly an incredibly popular franchise because it has gone global. For kind of new listeners and maybe even possibly relatively new Zwifters, you'd recommend that they join the KISS races in Australia, and are they Australia specific, or have you got like Southern Hemisphere races? How's that all working?
KISS Down Under, which is our Australian race, it kicks off at 9:30 in the morning British Summer Time, which works out, I think it's about 6:30 Sydney time PM. So it's specifically set up for that time zone, in that time is where they have determined is a slot that would be suitable. So we have 4 races in the American time zones now.
And some of those can appeal to Southern Hemisphere riders.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of overlaps a little bit. And then we've got KISS Asia, which is at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, our time. Yeah. It's at 9 o'clock their time. So, the time zones do overlap. And, we've got American riders riding the Australian and the Asian races. We've got a lot of American riders that ride KISS Europe. So I think that the name of the race is more based around the time zone that it is targeting.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily excluding riders from other time zones.
Sure.
The first KISS Asia race, we had 40 riders. And word's getting out that it is I think they like the short, snappy VO2 max effort for a good, 40, 50 minutes for those top class riders, of just all out ball breaking racing for that period of time. I mean, it is great fun. I mean, I've never sweated like it. I've never, you can't replicate it on the road. They are pretty high intense, but people seem to love them. They seem to keep coming back for them.
And how do you guys deal with race categorization or rider categorization? Because certainly on the ZTR, I noticed that there is increasingly more pressure on people who are topping their cats to upgrade if their figures justify it. Is the KISS mantra to let people find their own level, or are you getting people or encouraging people to upgrade?
Yeah, no, we do auto upgrade. So you basically, if you misenter, or if you're a new racer, then you get told what your category will be for your next race, basically. And if you are a C rider putting out B rider classifications, then you're not entitled to win that category.
And what's the sanction there? You miss them off the results?
Well, so we have 2 sets of results. So we have what are our categorized results. So based on rider category, and they would appear in a section called any not eligible. There are some people where they're just borderline between the 2 categories, and I do feel bad for them, but unfortunately you've got to kind of hold a big stick, really, and it's got to be the same stick that you hold for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the riders actually appreciate the fact that actually we don't allow sandbagging.
Yeah.
That's one of the big complaints from a lot of the other race series, not just ZTR. So we do actually auto upgrade, and we have jersey competitions within our races for sprint, for com. If you misenter your category, you're not entitled to win either of those. I mean, as you know, Simon, the categorization is
A little arbitrary.
It started out when Zwift first started together, and they needed something, the race organizers needed something to band each other with. And that's what they came up with. Now, a number of us are discussing other options like a ranking system. So the categories would just go out of the window, for example, and you would have rankings based on previous races. So there are lots of things that are being discussed to try and improve that situation.
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing is definitely going to mature and develop, I think, as the platform grows. And there's been a huge move in that direction with your scheme to really perfect and make incredibly sophisticated the presentation of results. Just talk us through what you're doing there.
So, Zwift Power is the end result, really. We've now got nearly 20 watchers on course one, Watopia and Richmond. That feeds in to give live data from the Zwift courses, from rider details into Zwift Power. So from Zwift Power, we can actually watch a live race in text format, look at live positions, live power output, live heart rate, live groupings, based on in-game Zwift data. It's been a lot of hard work by everybody involved. Yeah. But now, you see on Zwift Power, people are really loving the data. I mean, from a rider perspective, we're seeing people now setting up second screens in their pen case to have Zwift Power on, so they can see live. You can actually see the next person in front of you, how far away they are from you, and you can see what sort of power they're putting out, regardless of whether they appear on your screen in Zwift or not, because there could be 30 riders in between you that aren't racing. So you can actually see on your screen those people that are participating in your race, where they are, how far it is. So you can see a target, and that's critical, really, for racing.
And then, of course, at the end of the race, what it allows for is not only incredibly sophisticated and accurate results, but it allows individual riders to look at their own performance and how much time they spent in certain power zones, with a much greater level of sophistication than the Strava tool, for instance.
If you look at one of the KISS races with a blue star next to it, that's the official results, and that is a combination of both sets of data. And as far as I'm aware of it, Zwift Power is the only place where that happens at the moment. Yeah.
No, and just for people who haven't looked at it, it's zwiftpower.com, isn't it?
It is zwiftpower.com, and you can see all the race series there. If you click on one of the header links, so click on the KISS link, for example, within there, and that'll take you to the KISS landing page.
So, with a global race series, this, no doubt shed loads of work you've had to do to get this tool perfected. I'm guessing you don't actually have much time left to ride a bike.
I think it's I saw somebody post on one of the feeds this week with regards to hitting 6,000 miles or 6,000 kilometers this year so far, and how on earth do you do it? I struggle to fit 240 kilometers in a week, which is my target.
I have to say, to my eternal regret, I haven't experienced the full horror of a KISS race start, and I have been meaning to do it. I will do it, but for all those people who have and fall off the bike and kind of splash around in a pool of sweat, I'm sure they're incredibly grateful for the efforts that you KISS guys make, and I really hope lots of friends in the Southern Hemisphere discover the joys of the KISS series. And thank you very much for talking to the podcast.
Thanks, Simon.
God, those guys do so much work, and that tool that they have developed is just off the scale fantastic. Have you used Zwift Power, Shane?
I have. I saw a few of the early versions they were developing, and as someone who's been in IT for about 20 years or so, I was blown away. My jaw fell on the floor when I saw what they've done with what they've been provided with from the log files and setting up little... actually, I don't even know how they've done it in the back end, but I know there's no sort of API linking into it. But those guys are geniuses. The information provided there is more than what we can get in the real world for real races. I'm sure a lot of race organisers here in Victoria and Australia would love to grab a hold of that data and know what category to put riders in, because it's thorough and it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's a great tool. And Nathan, it must just have felt like all your birthdays had come at once for commentary.
Oh, for sure. I mean, when I'm setting up for a race broadcast, the first thing I do is, I get my casting software. The second thing I do is I get my chat open and the Facebook page and event. And then the third thing that I'm now doing for sure every single time is Zwift Power is coming up. It has a countdown right there for me for when the race is about to start. I can update people as the races go about to start and kind of talk about who the starters are going to be if they're starting to get listed on the Zwift Power. And then as soon as the race starts, I've got a list right in front of me, and so does anybody else, for first, second, third, fourth place all together, with time gaps back to who's together and who's not, with what their average watts per kilogram have been so far throughout the race, how far they've raced, whether or not they're on power meter, smart trainer, Z-Power, how much their watts were for whatever sprint it was. There's always something and some information and some sort of highlight that it now brings to my casting. It's such a great tool for that. And they've even embedded my live broadcast into the live pages for every race. So it's kind of like, hey, you want all this information? Then check this out. There's a dude right here talking about you racing. So, I mean, I appreciate those guys so much. KISS have done an amazing job, and we try and support them with the broadcasting as much as possible. We've been covering the KISS EU. We cover the Americas once in a while, and now we've started to also cover the KISS Down Under as well. We did one this past week. It's been an amazing tool. Zwiftpower.com is amazing.
It is. It is an incredible thing, and a testament actually to the way that people in a community can work together to do something that the platform actually, they are ahead of the Zwift developers here, and I understand that level of sophistication for racing, which not that large amount of the user base do, has to be low down Zwift's priority list, and most people would understand why that's the case. So the community has just said, well, okay, guys, well, we'll just solve this ourselves, and that it has been astonishing what they've managed to achieve.
From a gaming perspective, I am not surprised at all, because the most successful games in the world right now are the ones that actually had modifications that from users, had users get directly involved and develop in some sort of way.
The KISS races themselves, Shane, I see they're kicking off in Australia, and of course the distinguishing feature about them, as I was talking to Glenn about, is this bonkers charge off the line. Have you raced in one?
I have indeed. I've stuck into a few of these races, and that start line start is something that. What would you call it? It's sort of no one likes the guy who attacks from the gun in a criterium. I mean, we're all there to race, so they can race any way they like. But it is on. I think the first KISS race I did was something like 540 watts for the first minute, and it's not as if you're.
My goodness!
It was on. It was. It's sort of like, remember, if you're in a race and you want to establish a breakaway, you've got to put out that kind of watts and have a couple of around you to establish that, putting out exactly the same kind of watts as that to establish the break, and then you can start worrying about racing. That's what happens at the start of every KISS race I've done. You've got to be warmed up at the start. You've got to be ready. It's on. And then once things settle down, it's sort of, a breakaway establishes, but that's the race. And then it goes on from there. But it's been some fantastic racing, and holding those wheels, you forget, just like in a real race, you forget your power, you forget your heart rate, you forget what you're doing, you're not focusing on cadence, you're holding wheels. That's all you're up to. And the time will fly. Love those races.
Now, forgive the Zwiftcast yet another feature about racing, but I'm sure Australians will never tire of hearing the tale and everything that goes with it behind Matt Hayman's win at Paris-Roubaix. I caught up with his coach, Kevin Poulton, to get some inside griff. The first question I've got to ask you, really, Kevin, is, have you calmed down since Paris-Roubaix? I rate that as one of the best, if not the best, one-day races I've seen in my whole time watching pro cycling. It was just amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of calming down, I'd say no. Look, it's just such an exciting victory, but more so just to see Matt achieve his goal of winning Paris-Roubaix, something he's wanted for so long. And also to see the pleasure that it's brought Australian fans too. It really shows how popular Matt is and how well known his story is, and it certainly is being celebrated throughout Australia still.
Just for those, there can't be many people in the world, but there might be a few. Just for those who don't know, just run us through what happened in the build-up. Matty suffered an injury, didn't he? How did that come about?
Yeah, look, his build-up to the season had been very good back in Australia. So going back as far as October, November, the early season training had been going to schedule and was going well. Then we started the classic season overseas, and from the data we were seeing, Matt was producing his best power from the last 5 years. So we knew he was going to go into this season with good form, and we were excited for it. And then in that first race, Het Nieuwsblad, unfortunately, Matt had a crash. He was at the front of the race at the time, the second group, I think. I remember watching it on TV back in Australia late at night. The camera panned in and you could see Matt sitting on the side of the road holding his arm, and straight away I thought it was a broken collarbone. It ended up being a broken radius. We knew he had a broken arm, and there was going to be an adjustment to training.
So what form did that adjustment take? Was he off the road completely?
I thought I might receive an email the next day saying, I've broken my arm, let's readjust the race schedule and the training, we'll pick some goals for the second half of the year. But I got an email a couple of days later from Matt saying, I'm on the trainer, what can we do?
And did you put him onto Zwift, or did he find Zwift himself?
No, he found Zwift himself through an old coach of his. And then once he was onto it, the question was, what are we going to do? How much do I need to do on this thing, and how do I use it? I'd actually played around with it last year preparing one of our Australian riders for the World Championships, so I'd had some experience with it, and once I knew that Matt had used it and was set up to use it, I was pretty excited because I knew it was going to allow me to put in place very specific training for Paris-Roubaix, so it was a real positive.
Did you devise his entire ergo program in the time he was on it?
Absolutely, yeah. So we broke it down into 2 sessions a day. I also had this belief that about 90 minutes is enough for most people on the indoor trainer.
Yeah.
But Zwift just allowed Matt to maintain motivation more than anything. And so by breaking it up into 2 sessions a day of very specific work, we were able to achieve quite a big workload. It was the motivating factor, just being able to ride with other people, but still do your own work. That was the real key to it.
How do you rate it as a training tool?
Oh, it's perfect. It's ideal. The specificity you can get using it, it can't be beaten. We've broken down the specifics of Paris-Roubaix and how it's raced, and we were able to replicate that on the trainer exactly.
Mm-hmm. And for people who aren't Matty Hayman, and that's, let's face it, that's most of us. There is a small kind of minority of cyclists who say, trainer miles are not real miles. I don't think I've ever spoken to a coach who's ever agreed with that. What's your view on how useful the ergo is as an all-round training tool?
Oh, I think it's a necessity, really. Like I mentioned before, just the specificity you can get on the trainer. It's quality time. There's no wasted time on the ergo. And I've known as far back as 10, 15 years ago, riders that were successful at an international level were using some sort of home trainer once or twice a week. And now with Zwift, we can record it, we can manipulate it to suit our needs. It's just really going high tech, that next level.
Yeah, and has the Zwift word spread amongst the team? I mean, have you had any other riders? Are you aware of any other riders inquiring about it, or maybe thinking about using it if they suffer an injury and need some rehab, or even as part of their normal training?
Yeah, look, I think it's the interest is massive now. All of a sudden, everyone wants to know exactly what Matt did. I think it's always been very popular with amateur and national level riders, and now we've shown that we can use it at a world tour level and be successful with it. I think it's going to become a very integral part of most professional riders' training.
And what does the rest of the season hold for Matt? I'm not sure what his program is actually. Does he tend to ride the Grand Tours?
Yeah, well, look, currently Matt has just finished Luxembourg and then he's into Tour of Suisse. And then from that, we're just waiting for selection to be announced for the Orica Green Edge team for the Tour de France. We've got our fingers crossed that Matt will make that team.
Yeah.
And then after that, obviously Matt has a pretty good back end to the year generally, and he always plays a pretty big role in World Championships for Australia.
Wow. And he is now, I mean, I think he was before, but he's just like a hero in Australia, isn't he?
Yeah, he's just, because he's such a humble guy and his story is so well known. Look, to go from last place in Paris-Roubaix and to come back year after year and keep wanting to be successful at it and then to achieve that goal. And as people have said, you know, he very rarely gets to ride for himself. And so when you've only got one opportunity a year in your career to ride for yourself, you've only got 15 goes at it, and to finally do it, it's a massive achievement.
That win, Shane, for Matt Hayman, and then those remarks about Zwift, I mean, that must have done nothing other than add like tons of credibility to Zwift as a training tool.
Look, I get goosebumps every time I hear the story. Every time I watch the backstage pass they filmed, I still cannot believe he out-sprinted Tom Booner. I don't think the world can believe.
No.
But that was fantastic. And just when he stood up and hugged Turbo Durbo, again, us Aussies all know Durbo, Australian champ and things. Durbo's like, mate, how did you do that? And he stood up and he said, I was just riding the ergos. Yeah. That quote, that was brilliant. It still gives me goosebumps right now talking about, brilliant stuff. He has the skills there. It wasn't only Zwift that did it. What it did, it allowed him to just maintain fitness that he needed, maybe even build a little bit because it was so specific. It was exactly what he needed to do. No junk miles at all. He was focused. And he had a goal. And never get in the way of somebody with an absolute power to drive forward like he had and an absolute love for that race. His story, if the listeners want to have a look at Hayman's history in the race and the team around him for that race, it was a beautiful thing to see him win. I can't wait to read the book. There's going to be a book written about this, and I can't wait to read it.
And are you still seeing Matty on Zwift? I mean, presumably he'll pop up a bit this winter.
I've got Matty Hayman on my notification on the mobile app, so it gives a little beep when they start riding. He is still popping up. He's still on the platform. It's not a one show only thing that he used it for. He's still riding and still interacting with us. He's even popped up on the Facebook group as well. So it's good to have real people, but real superstars in our midst as well.
I'd love to see him on the line for one of those Kiss starts.
I would love it too.
Or maybe not.
Well, then, I mean, I'm not sure they would like to see that. Yeah. The guys that are showing up, Team Experimental and Team Vision. I mean, but at the same time, it would be interesting too. And maybe we'll get some Go-Go Power Ranger, head to head with Matty Hayman or something. But
can we allow power-ups for that race, please? Just power-ups.
What is the indoor season looking like in Australia, Shane?
Ergo season's really started here in Australia. Winter just kicked in a few days ago. Zwift Oz is going gangbusters. We've got over 2,000 members. We've got a great community who are all upskilling themselves in diagnosing Ant+ issues and sensor issues and helping each other out. And given we're in Australia, we've got a sense of isolation here from the rest of the world based on time zones and our location. So that builds a good sense of community as well. So things are going really, really good. The numbers are strong. And just today we had rain on the east coast of Australia from Brisbane down to Melbourne. And I'm in country Victoria. We got the tail end of it here as well. It was raining. There were so many people riding Zwift. It was amazing to see.
The Kiss Down Under race is by far one of the largest races I've seen out on Zwift so far. And all the Aussie flags that were there, it blew me away actually to see how many of the same country flag were all in on that race. And you guys had the largest numbers. I mean, of course, it is going into your winter season. So, but I mean, you almost doubled the participation levels it looked like when I covered the race. So I was really excited to see that as a broadcaster.
We love seeing what we call an Aussie flag bingo. If you have all Australian flags on the one screen, if you can screen capture that or grab a mobile, and we have a little game. What's happening, though, is New Zealand are always sneaking in. Now, the distance between the two lanes...
Shane, don't start that. Don't start that,
The difference is only 1 pixel. So a lot of people are saying, hey, I've got a bingo. And it's like, no, there's a damn New Zealander in there. We welcome those guys as well. They're great.
Nathan, I know you're racing outdoors a lot, and obviously, you know, it's Northern Hemisphere summer for us, or at least what passes for summer in the UK. But I often picture the Zwift executives on their knees praying for bad weather, because I know what it does to their numbers. But of course, bad weather in the Northern Hemisphere, particularly in certain parts of the States, is like heat and flies and mosquitoes and all that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the humidity is really kicking in, and that's, actually, that's funny. I do some heat training on Zwift as well, just because I know that that's coming. I mean, we get 90 to 100% humidity here very often, and somewhere between 75 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So, I mean, it can get downright just brutal. And I do keep on riding Zwift, though. I mean, we have a large family. We're blessed with 5 children. I'm doing the Twitch broadcasting. I'm racing at a professional level on the mountain bike. There's a lot of training that's going on. And so Zwift has really helped me and my wife, Lindsay, actually, who actually just had a recent interview with Zwift as well. And there should be a blog coming about her pretty soon here, how we kind of like duo it. I kind of have the night owl and get my training in either late at night or immediately after the Twitch casts on Zwift, because my bike's ready to go and I just jump on and start riding. And then she gets up early in the morning and gets her Zwifting in super early. Of course, we do get outside and work on technical skills or do the local hammer ride and take our Zwift fitness into the hammer ride and drop the hammer on everybody who are like, where did you come from? Who are you? What happened here? Yeah. So chasing pixels makes you fast, that's for sure.
Yeah. Guys, thank you very much indeed for joining me. It's been great, as I say, to have some company. It's been great to get round the world as Zwift does. It's really interesting, Shane, to hear how it's taking off in Australia. And Nathan, just in case nobody knows, I can't believe nobody knows, but just in case, tell us where we can see and hear your work, please.
Oh, yeah. So if you're looking for the broadcast, twitch.tv/Nathan Guerra. That's just one word, and you can find it there. You can also find it on ZwiftPower.com on the live feeds on ZwiftPower.com. We are embedded there. There's a little thing in the upper right-hand side that says Nathan Guerra Live Broadcast. Or you can find it on our media page as well at vision-cycling.com. If you just search, if you Google my name, I think it's like the first or second thing that pops up.
Shane, everybody knows you as Llama. What is that all about, by the way?
Oh, look, it's a nickname from long ago, and we'd need a whole Zwiftcast to explain what it is. But it's just stuck from high school, and it's sort of llama with one L because I'm lazy as well, and that's gone into alpacas. But look, that's what the blog's always been called, and you can find me if you just GP Llama or GP Llama Cycling, you'll find my blogs and reviews. I've just put up a review of the Neo.
Yeah, I saw that.
So if people want to check that out, just Google GP Llama, or you can find me. I'm on the internets everywhere, so you can hit me up on Twitter or the Facebook groups as well if you need to find me.
You've got shed loads of Strava followers as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been working pretty hard on the Strava side of things. I love that as a platform to share Australia, photos of Australiana, where I ride. It's the opposite to a lot of followers. And Zwift is global as well. So you thumbs up a few people on Zwift and people follow me back. It's been really great to interact. I'm getting over 2,000 kudos per ride now, which is just blowing me away.
Oh my goodness!
2,000!
Wow!
But the comments and the interaction I'm getting with people throughout the world is brilliant. I love my Strava. Yeah. Follow me on Strava as well.
Yeah, great. Listen, guys, thank you very much indeed, and no doubt I'll see you on the island. That's it for this episode of the Zwiftcast. I hope you've enjoyed the new format. If you want to tell me what you think about it, search for Zwiftcast Listeners on Facebook and I'll take a look at what you've got to say.